Explain what a psychological assessment is related to varying forms. Give some examples. Different types of assessments are psychological interview, like a Q&A between a psychologist and a client. An unstructured one would be using open-ended questions like, how are you? Um, what changes are going on in your life? um, Describing symptoms, like, or asking them to describe symptoms and how long they've been having them, how's life going in all areas, um, and then letting the client kind of tell a story from that. Um, Questions like what or how um, are like open-ended questions, not yes or no, or multiple choice, because you'd be limiting your answers and getting less information from the client. You want more in depth. And then a semi-structured is some planned info and some not. Structured interviews are like SCID, for example. Basically, that assessment, they ask questions on the assessment and flow chart to get the end result. In the end, they'll get a diagnosis that gets spit out from all the questions. Um, and then there's a projective and then an objective. So the projective is unstructured um, responses with the same stimuli. So, like an ink blot test, which is kind of older form. Some swear by it, and others say it's unreliable. So, there's another TAT, tell a story from pictures, kind of thing, where the client can look at pictures of like people, for instance, in a card, and they can tell a story of what's going on in the picture, and so they can see more of a inner story of what's going on with this person in the world. Say if they have an inner conflict with a brother, or something like that, it may come out in these questions. So or you can do beginning sentences like, I really don't like blank, or my mom is blank, and it's like an ambiguous stimuli with open responses. So an objective is a set of Q and A's, like Q and question and answer, um, to basically get a score, like a multiphonistic personality inventory, a true and false type questions, like true or false. I dislike others being around me. There's an example of that. Um, and then, a self-report would be another one. It's kind of hard because some people will try to, hide things, or cover it up a bit, and others will inflate the info and make it more dramatic seeming than it is. So it's kind of hard to do that for yourself. And then there's also the Connors Teachers Rating Scale, which is a score, a mental health score, above or below, giving a diagnosis as well. And there's also taking the steps to take an sorry, I cannot say this, assess in a client. Making an assessment is basically making the main focus tailored to the needs of the client. And this is meaning that most people that diagnose the client will treat them, unless in special cases they refer them out. And then an example of it would be panic attacks, like how often are they having them? What happens during them, prior to them, or are there triggers? Are there prescribed drugs being taken? Are there recreational drugs? Are they revealing this to you? And what reactions are they having from that? And then explain what are some ethical issues that arise. Deception is a big one. It's always going to be a big one, to not know the real aim of a study, consent, informing them and obtaining them, verbal or written, especially if there's kids involved, the assent, that they're happy to move on, debriefing them, telling them the real aim of the study and the results, informing them of any publication and discussion, and then right to withdraw. So if there's any physical, psychological harm, letting them know so they can withdraw. And that's it.